As I start off this video, I have two questions that I want you to think about as you watch this. The first one is, have you ever thought about how you ended up where you ended up in life? And the second question is, have you ever heard of serendipity? And have you ever experienced it? I have. I've just experienced it in the last 24 hours, and that's what's led me to make this video today. But going back to that first question, how did you end up where you ended up in life? That was something that I thought about for the last few years. And every time I think about this topic, I keep going back to this experience that I had as a teenager with this. I'm gonna tell you all about this, what it is, and how it changed my life completely. This thing here is called X-Band. It is a video game modem, and it came out in the mid-90s. This was a time when, Super Nintendo was the video game console to have. Sorry to all you Sega Genesis fans out there, but this was the console, Super Nintendo was the console to have. And this device was revolutionary because what it allowed you to do was you would put this into your Super Nintendo, you would put a game that was compatible on top of it, you would plug in your telephone line, and this would allow you to access what's called the X-Band network, and you're able to play video games with people across the nation, which was crazy because at that time, this is going way back right into the 90s, if you wanted to play video games with people, you would either have to go to an arcade or your friends would have to go over to your house or you'd go over to their house to play games. Online gaming wasn't a thing because online was very new. So it was at that time as a teenager, I was big into playing video games. I was big into playing Street Fighter, big into playing Mortal Kombat. And as a matter of fact, I was very good at those games. Not to like toot my own horn, but in my local area in Orlando, I was a really good Street Fighter player. I would go to arcades, I would spend a ton of money, I would win a lot. I was one of the better players in my friend circle, maybe potentially, arguably the best player in my friend circle. So when this product came out and I had the ability to test my skills against players across the nation, I was excited because I knew I was a pretty good player, potentially a great player, and this device was gonna give me the opportunity to prove that. So here's what happened. I got this device and I started playing Street Fighter online. I went under the gamer tag Ghost Rider X and I began playing. And what was really interesting was I was right. I played a lot of different players and I won and I was pretty good. But there was one person that I got matched up with very early on. His name was Dream Theater Plus. This guy, Dream Theater Plus, had a record because when you would match up with one another, it would show your records. This guy had an insane record. I mean, I might have been in again, less than 100 matches for sure at that point. This guy had thousands of matches and he had single digit losses, which is insane. People lose at stuff all the time. And somehow this guy playing Street Fighter had very, very few losses. Dream Theater Plus. So I see this record, we begin playing, and this guy was so good, so good. The best player by far. It was almost like we were not playing the same video game, okay? He was beating me so thoroughly and in ways that I couldn't even fathom, and with characters that he should not be winning with. I was so discouraged, and I said, I thought I was so good, and I was comparing myself to other local players, my friends, and here's this person, Dream Theater Plus, on the X-Band network that just made me feel like I had never played this game before. It was as if you gave the controller to a dog and said, hey, I'm gonna play you in Street Fighter. They would have no idea, and that's how I felt. I felt like a puppy dog that didn't know how to play the game. So I had a choice to make, and this was the life lesson that I learned that I hope in sharing this with you today that it will be a blessing to you. I decided that I was going to figure out how he did what he did. Because here's the thing, there's this quote that I've heard many, many times. I don't know who said it first, but I just know who I heard it from first. And this quote is, I don't know if you can see that, success leaves clues. And the quote was from Tony Robbins. He says, go figure out what someone who was successful did and model it, improve it, but learn their steps, they have knowledge. That was Tony Robbins. I had not heard this quote at that point in my life, but that right there was so true for me, because what I ended up doing was I took my VCR, I took a blank VHS tape, popped it in there, and I just started playing games online in the hopes that I would get matched up against him again, which ended up happening. I think it was a weekend that I was playing, but all of a sudden I get matched up with Dream Theater Plus, and I immediately hit record on my VCR. And I decided at that moment, I'm going to play the way I normally play. And then in the next match, I'm gonna play him again, and I'm gonna play a little more aggressively than what I would normally do. And then I would also play very defensively for a round, because I wanted to see what does he do based on what I'm doing, right? Because there was clearly some kind of a pattern that he was forcing me into that was causing me to lose. And I knew if I figured out what this pattern was, that I would not only be able to beat him, but potentially become a much better Street Fighter player. So we play, and like he proceeds to smash me as he had smashed me many times over, as I would play the way I normally play. We played again, I played more aggressively, he smashed me again in a different way. And then I played defensively, and yet again, ends up smashing me. So the cool thing is, because I was recording these matches, I now have footage that I can go back and look and study and try to understand what was he doing to beat me the way that he was beating me. Now on this day, I was really lucky because for some crazy reason, we got matched up multiple times over. So I just had a bunch of different videos that I was able to watch. I played different characters. And long story short, I had all this footage. So I sat down and I watched that footage, and I was studying, what does he do? What does he do when I do A, right? What does he do if I do B? And I started to pick up a little pattern. I picked up certain combinations, certain strategies that he would incorporate that were winning strategies and winning things that he was doing. And it made sense to me why he had the record that he had, that he was just such a good player. Now with this newfound information, I decided over the course of many weeks to continue playing, and I started, instead of playing the way that I would normally play, I started modeling myself and my gameplay after what I saw him do to me. And I started playing other players, and then I started to dominate them in the ways that he would dominate me when we played. And so this went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. I started to get better. I would practice all the time. And this all led up to this crazy moment where we would finally, after all this time, have our rematch. So we have our rematch, and it's hilarious because I pick the same player, which was Zangief on Street Fighter, and I proceed to beat him in the exact same way that he had beaten me so many times before. And then this like super crazy thing happened. After I beat him, the screen froze. Like immediately as I won, the entire screen froze. And usually that happened because this X-Band device, you would plug in a telephone cable, which would be your access to the internet. And if you pull that telephone cable out, the match would just freeze and you would not be given the win and they would not be given the loss, which was a very annoying thing that would happen back in those days. But he pulled because the screen froze. And I was like, oh, come on. I just beat this guy. Like I was so excited, so proud. Mere seconds later, someone starts talking through the television. So what happens is if you pull the telephone cable out from this device and you plug in your phone and you pick up your phone and you start talking, the audio plays through the television. So he starts screaming into the through the phone saying, you stole my techniques and you cheated and you're using my character. I don't even remember. He was basically just berating me. And I remember freaking out because my mom was home and I didn't want her to hear that there was somebody like yelling at me through the TV because she wouldn't let me play X-Band at that point. So I ran to the TV, turned down the volume, and kind of walked away from the situation thinking like, wow, I was able to beat this guy who was like a hero of mine at that point in my journey as a Street Fighter player. But it taught me this super valuable lesson, which is that if somebody is good, and if they've set out to do something and they've accomplished anything, right? If any human being has accomplished something that you or I would like to do, then it's entirely possible for it to be replicated if you study it. And I realized that early on through this experience with Dream Theater Plus on X-Band. We had the opportunity to record these matches. I studied, I practiced, I got good, I beat him, and I continued to play Street Fighter, and I actually ended up becoming one of the top 10 players in the nation on X-Band. I'll have to see one day if I can find the clippings. Because it would get published in a video game magazine. But I was in the top 10 players in the nation for Street Fighter, which for me was crazy. But all of that to say that if somebody has done something, you could replicate that. And that's what I've done in my own photography. That's what I've done in my own career. That experience showed me that I can look, I don't have to make the wheel from scratch, right? The wheel's already been made. You could find the blueprint, you can find the data for all of that. We live in a time now where we have more information available to us than any human beings that have ever lived or existed on this planet. So it's not a lack of information, it's just a lack of motivation, maybe, resourcefulness to go out and get that information. And I don't want that to be the truth for you. I don't want it to be the truth for me. So listen, if you want to be a better photographer, better retoucher, better creative, better human being, there have been people out there that have existed in history that currently exist as well that you can model yourself after, right? And you can pick up tips and tricks and things like that. And hopefully being a subscriber here on my YouTube channel, which if you're not, please subscribe. But by being here on my YouTube channel, hopefully you're on that journey as well. So here's where the story really, really gets crazy. I decided a few months ago that I wanted to make this video, and I figured, trying to explain what this X-Band device is without physically having it would be a little bit difficult. So I said, let me check on eBay. Let me see if I could find one of these things. And that way I could have it and I could show you what it is, take pictures with it, whatever. But then beyond the video, I could also hang this up as kind of just a reminder of this experience that I had. So I go onto eBay, I'm looking online, and I'm specifically looking for one of these that happened to come with the box, with the original box. And so I'm searching online, and I happen to find on eBay an X-Band device with the box, with the instructions, like everything included. I want to say it was maybe like 120 bucks or something like that. I went ahead, I pulled the trigger, I bought it. It arrived yesterday, and then something that I wasn't expecting happened when I looked at the box. Let me see if I could do this without giving away too much information here, but the name on the box, the person that sent this to me, this X-Band device, their name was Jason Wilson. And I mentioned serendipity at the beginning of this video. Jason Wilson is the name of Dream Theater Plus. How absolutely crazy is that? That I've been trying to figure out a way to tell you all this story, to share this experience with you. And I thought that the story ended back in the 90s when all this happened. And here we are now in 2022. I randomly purchased one of these X-Band devices on eBay, and it happens to come from somebody who has the same name as Dream Theater Plus, the person that kind of just got this whole thing in motion to make this video. So of course that name is very common. There's a ton of Jason Wilsons out there. But it was very strange that there was a Jason Wilson that just shipped me this X-Band. So I went onto my eBay account, I sent a message. Hey Jason, thank you so much. I received the package yesterday, everything is great, but I got a question for you. By chance, did you actually play on X-Band? And by chance, was your name Dream Theater Plus when you played on X-Band? About 5 minutes later, I end up getting an email back and he says, I was. Were you Soul Stealer on X-Band? And just to provide a little context, Soul Stealer was my friend Tony, who also lived in Orlando, Florida. I was not Soul Stealer, I was Ghost Rider X, so I emailed him back and I was just shocked that the X-Band device that I purchased it from the guy who I'm talking about now, who gave me this experience that ultimately changed my life. You wouldn't be watching this video today if it wasn't through the experience that I learned in playing him in Street Fighter using this device. Serendipity. I mean, I've literally never experienced that in my entire life. And yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this story. I personally think it's crazy. I couldn't have imagined that this would ever happen in real life. But I want to leave you with this one thing. You could do anything that you set your mind to. Anything that has ever been done, that can be done, that will be done. You watching this right now, you have the ability to be able to do that. I often say this in my workshops. I say this behind closed doors very often. But this industry, this business, this thing called photography has helped me to live a life that I would have never imagined that I would be able to live. I didn't grow up wanting to become a photographer, but here we are. And I didn't grow up ever wanting to be a YouTuber or even knowing what a YouTuber was or desiring to speak to anybody beyond just my close circle of friends, but here we are. So you may not know how you ended up where you ended up in life, but what I can tell you is that you can make changes today to end up where you would like to end up in life in some way, shape, or form. Study those people that have come before you, pick up those breadcrumbs that they have left, those clues of success that they've left, and piece it all together until you have a loaf of bread that you can live and eat off of for the rest of your life.